Father, we thank you for the ability to be here, Lord. I thank you for these leaders, and I pray that this would be the beginning of an incredible journey in a room with 5 people that blossoms into something that overtakes this city. Lord, that we could be a beacon on a hill, and that we could be a light to a very dark place in this part of the country. We have the change within us, and it just takes a stepping out in faith. Lord, I pray that each one of us realizes that today, that we are that change, and it only comes from a dependence fully and totally upon you. Thank you so much. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right, so 5 weeks, we're going to do a training session for all of our leaders. So you being up here is not just a commitment to go to the church. Because if that was all it was, then we would just get together and we would eat and we'd fellowship and we'd have a good time. Your being up here is a commitment to change and a commitment to be a leader when we get there. And there are 5 core areas of our life that we usually are topsy-turvy in. And we want to begin talking about those and begin changing some of those. And the first one we're going to talk about is balance. And balance is a huge part of everyone's life, and unfortunately it's a part of everyone's life that we do not pay very much attention to. We are creatures of urgency. We're going to talk about that a little bit later today. But most of us, when we start talking about life and ministry, we look like this famous Dr. Seuss Cat in the Hat. And if you remember the story, this is when he's trying to show off for the kids. He says, "Look at me now," said the cat, "with a cup and a cake on the top of my hat. I can hold up 2 books. I can hold up the fish and a little toy ship. I can make some milk on a dish, and look, I can hold up and down on the ball. But that is not all." Oh no, that is not all. And this is us. This is us. Oh, look at us. Look at me, look what I can do, and I can do everything, and I can put it down on my little calendar, and I can write it down on my planner, I can put it in my phone, and I can do all these things, but that's not all. I can do more, I can do more, and I can do more, and I can say yes, and I'm the man, I'm the guy, I'm the woman with the power in the hour. And this is what we look like. And unfortunately, every aspect of our ministry, of our lives that we balance like this, isn't done efficiently, and it's not done well. And this is what we end up looking like when we don't have balance in our lives. And Anthony, I know you hate PowerPoint, but we're going to have a couple questions today. Actually, several questions today. What 1 or 2 changes could make this week? Oh, I left out a word. What 1 or 2 changes could you make this week that would dramatically improve your health? Now take off health. What 1 or 2 changes could you make this week that would dramatically improve your career? What 1 or 2 changes could you make this week that would dramatically improve your relationship with your spouse or your children? What 1 or 2 changes could you make this week that would dramatically improve fill in the blank? You don't have to answer this question yet, but the bigger question is, why aren't you doing those things? So if you know that you could strengthen your relationship with your wife, with your child, with a friend, with a girlfriend, with whoever it is in your life, if you know there's one thing that you could do that would dramatically change that relationship, why haven't we done that? Health, all of those things. Number 2, how often do you find yourself saying, "I am so tired. I am worn out. I am exhausted. I have been doing too much"? All right, number 3, and again, you don't have to answer all these, they're just kind of rhetorical. When was the last time you had an actual conversation with your physical neighbor? When was the last time you had an actual conversation with your neighbor? So we spend so much time coming to church and talking to people and being social, and we want to invite people into a relationship, but Jesus calls us to love our who like ourselves, our neighbors. And our actual neighbors, we don't even reach out to. When was the last time you took off without guilt? Took off from work? Took off from family? Not took off from family, but because sometimes, even though we love the people around us, sometimes we need a break. And when we have those breaks, do we feel guilt? Do we always look back and wonder, well, what's my boss saying about me being gone? What's my coworker saying about me being gone? Whenever I'm on the stream and I'm fly fishing, am I thinking about the project that I have to do when I get back, or am I truly gone? Do we have guilt when you take time off? Are you afraid to say no? No is a very powerful word. And if you go back to that cat in the hat, which is who we are, we run around, we don't say no. And we want to be liked, and we want to be accepted. And so we say yes to everything that we can. Yes, I can do that. Yes, I can do that. Yes, I can do that. I'm the cat in the hat, man. I'm the power. I got the power of the hour. I'm ready to go. I'm the man. And especially in ministry, people are going to turn to you as a leader. They're going to turn to you as somebody who has answers. And they're always going to take something from you when they seek your advice, when they seek your wisdom. And so if you're not comfortable saying no, they will take from you to death. I don't know how to... They will nitpick you to death. They will take every ounce that you give them. And your ability to say no has to be there. Number 6, how many things around the house are unfinished because I haven't found time yet? I haven't found time yet. One of these days, I am going to get that done. One of these days, when I have some more time, I'll finish that project in the garden. One of these days, when I have some more time, I'll fix the stuff that my wife's been griping at me to fix. I noticed I didn't invite my wife because I didn't want her to see this question. Because I got a whole bunch of stuff.
But you brought mine.
Yeah, I didn't want to warn you. All right? How much time do you spend with God?
Amen.
How much time do you spend with God? This is alone time. This isn't corporate worship. And for those of us who preach and teach, this is also not the time we spend preparing. So when you do a lesson or you do a sermon and you've spent 15 hours in the Word, that doesn't count. That doesn't count. How much alone time do you spend with God? What would your friends and family say about the time that you spend with them? Is it enough time? Do they want more? Is it quality time? Are you engaged with them whenever you spend time with them? Are you caring about them? Are you reaching out to them? Are you being all you and all there whenever you spend time with your family and friends? Or do they get the leftovers? So when you come home and you've had a long day, you've had a busy day, you've been driving all over the country, you've been listening to your boss nag at you, you've got terrible employees under you, whatever it is, you bring all that home, and instead of giving your family every bit of you, you give them what's left over from the day. What would your friends and family say about that time that you spend with them? Is your identity wrapped up in Jesus Christ? Or is it wrapped up in something else? When somebody asks about you, what do your friends and family say that your identity is? Do they say that guy is a Christian first and foremost? Or do they say that guy is a designer who works at a company here in town? Or do they say that woman is somebody who's trying to get her career life straight? Do they say that woman is somebody who travels a lot? Whatever it is your identity wrapped up in Christ or is it wrapped up in something else? And here's something scary as we minister together. Is your identity wrapped up in your ministry? Or is your identity wrapped up in Christ? I don't want to be known as a preacher. I want to be known as somebody who's sold out for Christ. And our identity should be wrapped up in that. Balance is caring for yourself as a whole person, not bits and pieces. Balance is caring for yourself as a whole person. Somebody have their Bibles? Anybody? You're worse than the youth. All right. Mark 12, 28 through 33. Anybody know off the top of their head what that scripture is referring to?
I do not.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, I had to look it up myself. I'm doing the study here. All right, Mark 12, 28 through 33. Very familiar. Everybody's heard this probably. And it says, one of the scribes came and heard them arguing, and recognizing that he had answered them well, asked him, what commandment is the foremost of all? And Jesus answered, the foremost is, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one God. And you shall love the Lord your God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, and all your mind, and all your strength. And the second is this, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. And there is no greater commandment than these. And the scribe said to him, "Right, teacher, you have truly stated that he is one, and there is no one else beside him, and to love him with all the heart, with all the understanding, with all the strength, and to love one's neighbor as himself is much more than all burnt offerings and sacrifices." Jesus doesn't say that you love God with a compartment. You don't love Him with part of your being. You don't love Him with your church being. You love Him with everything. And Jesus goes so far as to say that we have separate parts of our lives. Your body, your soul, your mind, your strength. Oh, I can't remember exactly what He said. But all those things, they're a different part of our person. But we love them with all parts. Balance is caring for yourself as a whole person. So, question, what is our list of priorities when it comes to our ministry? Who's first in our lives?
God.
God's first. Everybody agree with that, yes? Who's second in our lives?
Spouse.
That's what everybody goes to, right? Our spouse. And then third's our children, and then fourth is our ministry. Right? That's how it should be. But what actually needs to be number 2 is ourselves. The second one is us. We have to take care of us first. Then we take care of our spouse. Then we take care of our children. And then we take care of our ministry. And so on and so on. We're second. And I've never heard that before. But that's the truth. Is that we have to take care of us first. Now here's what our lives look like. We are a pot of boiling water. We are a kettle. And the heat that's being applied is the stress of life. And it's a good thing because heat is energy. It creates life. It makes life move. It makes the heat in the pot that causes the water to boil. So we need that. We need the stress of ministry. We need the stress of a career. We need to make money. We need to go out and save the world. Jesus didn't call us to just be stagnant, correct?
Correct.
But here's what happens, is the water is not us. That's the essence of us. The pot is us. And what happens when you leave water on boil too long? It evaporates. And so what we see is just all this energy and commotion that's coming because of the stress. And what we don't notice is the water level drops. And it continues to deplete. And at some point, it's going to run dry. And I don't know if you've ever seen a pot when it runs dry, but it's ugly. And sometimes it cracks and it splits and it's no good anymore. That's what we call burnout. And you have burned so long and so hot and you've caused so much things to get done and energy and all these different things in convection that you are burnout. And this is where accountability comes in. Accountability is our next core issue. We'll talk about that next week. But you need somebody from the outside saying, "Chris, look, your water level's below half. You got to take some time. You got to figure out somehow to get that water level back up, because if you don't, you're going to exhaust yourself. And you're not going to be any good to me. You're not going to be any good to your church. And you're not going to be any good to him, because you're going to be exhausted with everything." And that's what it looks like. And we get dry, and we have to increase our water. We have to increase the stuff of life, the essence. Now a kettle, if you don't have another pot or another container, how do you put water in the kettle? You have to remove it from what? The heat. You have to remove it from the stovetop. And then you fill it back up. So each one of us, we need to have something in our life, some way in our life to fill ourselves back up. And that has to come from a removal of the stresses. And so take this time, take just a couple of seconds, 30 seconds. Put on your paper one thing that you enjoy doing that relieves stress in your life. A moment where you're taking off the heat and you're replenishing yourself. Once you got it, do you have any thoughts? Want to share those? Chris?
I enjoy going for a long drive alone.
Okay, driving alone. I enjoy driving myself. All right, time to reflect, space out. All right, anyone else?
I enjoy walking or running around a certain park that I like.
Okay.
Outside. I love being outside. by
Nature?
myself, alone.
All right, good, good. Where did God put us? You know, He put us outside in a garden. He didn't put us in a high-rise. He didn't put us in our basement watching television. He put us outside. All right, anyone else?
I love snowboard, but that's seasonal.
So that's true.
The other route is always either television or video games.
Okay.
Because when I'm alone and quiet, my mind automatically moves to work. I need something to replace that.
Okay. All right. So I like that. It's a good word, replacement. Okay. Lynn?
I find it relaxing to go sit at coffee shops and read.
Okay. All right. So again, disconnected.
Yeah.
Disconnected. You're not going to bring your family with you to do that. It's kind of your thing, and that's what we need. All right. And so accountability allows us to look at one another in ways that we don't look at ourselves. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So when you come home and your wife says, you know what, you need to go do something because you're driving me crazy. And you're like, man, I haven't done anything. I'm just here. I'm just me. That's not true. There's something else going on. And for those of you who aren't married, what about the people in your life that matter to you? Do they tell you things? Look, I don't know what your deal is, but you need to go do something. You need to go cut the grass. You need to go play in the garden or something because you're out of control right now. We need accountability. And again, we're going to get to this next week, but the point is we have to be able to look at ourselves in a way that we don't normally look at ourselves. Because if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you always got, right? And that's how we get in these ruts. And what is a rut? It's just a grave with both ends kicked out. That's all it is. And that's how burnout begins to take place. All right, a couple of things. This is quadrant 4 thinking. So we're going to take the urgent and important. That's quadrant 1. Does everybody get this? Urgent, not urgent, important, not important. Does everybody understand that flow? Mm-hmm. All right, so quadrant 1 is where we spend the most time. Quadrant 1 is where we spend the most time. It's urgent and it's important. So in this situation, a water pipe in your bathroom floor just broke. Is that urgent?
Yep.
Absolutely. Is it important?
Yep.
Yes. All right. Take another scenario. Deadline-driven project. You've procrastinated and it's due today. It's urgent and it's important.
Yep.
All right. And a friend in need. Now, the first two you probably could have prevented, correct?
Yep.
All right. We'll get to that in a minute. But the third one, that not necessarily can prevent. Chris is in a car accident. That's urgent. It's important. We need to go see him, take care of him. Yes?
Yes, sir.
All right. Quadrant 2 is where we spend the least amount of time, but it's the most important. Quadrant 2 is where we spend the least amount of time, but it's the most important. These are the things that are not urgent, but they are very important. So the water pipe in the bathroom is making strange noises, and we should have that checked out. It's not urgent, because you can go about your day. But is it important?
Yes.
Absolutely. Deadline-driven project is due next week, or 2 weeks, or 3 weeks. It's not urgent today. I don't have to finish it today, but it's extremely important. And then relationship building. This is where we spend the most time, or excuse me, this is where we spend the least time, but we should spend the most time. This is where breakthrough happens. This is where we have wonderful relationships. This is where a husband and a wife truly connect and love and feel each other. But unfortunately, we don't spend any time there. Go to quadrant 3. This is where we spend the second most amount of time. It's urgent, but it's not important. The broken pipe inspired a remodel, and you want it done now. It's urgent, not important. Co-workers in a panic that you identify as not an emergency. Chris is freaking out because he procrastinated, so that makes me freak out. Does that make sense? It's urgent, but it's not important to me, is it? Doesn't affect me whatsoever. But I'm freaking out because he's freaking out. And this is the hardest one for me, popular activities that I enjoy. I love to fly fish. I'm urgent about getting up there and fly fishing, but is it important? You can make some arguments there. Quadrant 4 should be struck from your life, except for very, very small occasions. Not urgent and not important. Posting to Facebook about your bathroom remodeling. Complaining about your deadline rather than doing something about it. Anything that wastes time. Television. Reading. Writing on Facebook. Hanging out with your friends. These are time wasters. Minimize these. All right. Urgent and important, quadrant 1. You have to do these things. You can't get away from this. But you need to do them immediately. Quadrant 2, actually we're going to come back to quadrant 2. Quadrant 3, these are things that you can delegate away, or you can make sure that they don't have to be done right now. So the co-worker is in panic, it's not your emergency, you delegate him to another source. Hey, go take care of this on your own. Right, broken pipe inspired a remodel, that's when your wife sits you down and say, hey, you're out of control, you need to shut up, we're not going to remodel right now because we don't have the money. Quadrant 4, mostly time wasters, these need to be minimized as much as possible. Minimized as much as possible. In quadrant 2, where we should be spending the most time, you have to enter into your calendar, you have to plan for them, and you have to keep track of them. Is it important to build a relationship with your kids, if you have kids? Every week, you should be intentionally spending time with your kids. Intentionally. On the phone if you have to, hopefully together. This isn't sitting in front of a television. This isn't going out and getting a slice of pizza. This is intentional sit-down time with your students, with your children. For me, as a leader who's leading leaders, I have to intentionally sit down with you and intentionally do things to build our relationship. Does that make sense? So, if I just hang out with Chris, there's not going to be a whole lot of leadership building there. We're just going to hang out. But if I intentionally sit down with him 2 or 3 times a month and pour into him, a relationship, a leadership is going to come out of that. Does that make sense? But it has to be intentional.
That's quadrant.
That's quadrant 2. And we're going to be continually using that idea. Quadrant 2 thinking. Quadrant 2 activities. 1 John 2:4 says, the one who says, I have come to know him and does not keep his commandments is a liar, and the truth is not in him. What does your life reflect? I want to pass out something here in a minute, but there's a great quote in here. It says that you judge yourself based on your intentions, and other people judge you based on your actions. And what does God base us on? Both, right? They both matter to God. But to other people, your actions matter. And we're trying to save and bring other people to Christ. And so our actions have to match our convictions. Just because the motivation is good, just because you intended to do good, doesn't mean that you are doing good. Does that make sense? You have to follow His commandments. And part of His commandments is leading a balanced life. All right, a couple of thoughts on balance. Learn to say no. Learn to say no, and let no be a final answer. It does not have to be harsh. It does not have to be angry. But it does need to be final. Also, learn to say no with the intention of helping others lead. Learn to say no with the intention of helping others lead. So if you want your son to learn how to cook in the kitchen, you need to say no to him on dinner sometimes. You go do it. I'm not going to cook tonight. You're on your own. That teaches him. That shows him. Chris, I'm not going to be here this week. I need you to step up and lead the youth group. Well, but can you help me? No. It's on you. Does that make sense? Bringing up. Number 2, find activity. So, by the way, I wasn't bringing that back up. Just to try to make a point. Number 2, find activities outside of ministry that you enjoy. Find activities outside of ministry. Now, cross out ministry and put whatever it is that you spend the most time on. Find activities outside of work. Find activities outside of rearing your children. Find activities outside of sitting in front of the television. Find activities that you do outside of whatever consumes your life. And here's something that's scary that I don't share with just everybody. Find something outside of spirituality. Find something outside of that. Not everything has to be serious, cerebral, and rooted in some semblance of faux spirituality.
Right.
Nobody's like that. Jesus wasn't like that. Jesus spent his time of resurrection playing tricks on his disciples.
He would play Mario Kart.
He would play Mario Kart. He would laugh at fart jokes. Jesus was not this. I'm not going to get into all that. You get me preaching. Number 3, get rid of the Messiah complex. You can't do it all, so don't try. There was one Messiah, and you ain't him. Don't try to be. Number 4, guard against the tyranny of the urgent. It's a very specific word, the tyranny of the urgent, because it will consume your life. And you will go from one fire to the next, to the next, to the next, and you'll look back and you haven't done anything. You just ran around and looked busy. The tyranny of the urgent. Develop accountability relationships. Again, we're going to be talking about that next week. Have somebody in your life that, look at this, have somebody in your life that isn't impressed with you. Have somebody in your life that doesn't care about your ministry. Have somebody in your life that doesn't care about your perfect marriage. They love you, and they care about you. And they're not impressed with you. And they'll call you out. I've seen your poopy diaper, and you're sitting in it. And I know it's warm and it's yours, but we got to get you out of it. I've seen it. Develop some sacred space. Especially those of us who live in busy households. Sacred space. This area, this side of my bed, you don't get to sit on. The dog doesn't get to sit on. This is my spot. My garage. Well, half of my garage is mine. Develop some sacred space. And I might add to that, develop some sacred time. Develop some sacred time. Number 7, don't be a slave to technology. Technology is a great thing. But if you leave this at home and you feel naked without it and you have anxiety because you're not connected to your phone, that's a problem. We need to take care of that problem. Technology is a great thing. It's a great tool. But just like everything, it can become an issue. Is your cell phone a god to you? When God calls, do we answer? Yes? When your phone rings, do you stop everything that you're doing, regardless of what it is? You know, you're inside somebody's head doing brain surgery, and your phone dings, and you're like, oh, I guess we got a text message. That happens.
Yes.
It happens. I've been inside some pretty serious staff meetings before, and Pastor Richard gets a text. And we're in the middle of something extremely serious. And he's blind, you know, so he's got to hold it right here. Now do the same thing. Don't be a slave to technology. And number 8, prevent the pride of being busy. Being busy is not something to be proud of. Anthony, how are you doing this week? Busy, man. Busy. Roaring and going. That's a good answer, right? A better answer would be, I'm in balance. I'm at peace. I'm not a slave to the urgent.
Devil don't need to make you bad. He
That's
just
right.
needs to make you busy.
That's right. That's right. Busyness is not anything to be proud of. Okay. We got some homework. And everybody who's not here, you have some homework too. You're going to be creating a 2-week time log. A 2-week time log. And you're going to record everything that you do for the next week. Everything that you do. Now you can block out some things where you don't have to get really specific. So for me, work is a block. You know, I don't have to go in, well, I counseled with Anthony and, you know, I took care of blah, blah, blah. I don't have to do that. Just work. All right? And everything needs to be listed. The first week that you're going to do is you're going to fill out your ideal week. The perfect week. Not vacation. Perfect, normal, run-of-the-day week. You're going to fill that out. And then starting tomorrow morning, whenever you wake up, 5 a.m. or noon, whenever you wake up, just kidding, Chris, that was really fun. Whenever you wake up, you start. Now, this is important and urgent. I need you guys to do this. It's extremely important because we'll be talking about it next week. Extremely extreme. Quadrant 1, Quadrant 2 thinking, but this is Quadrant 1. All right. There is an area on this piece of paper that says time usage categories and priority action steps. There's a little chart. You can just ignore that until Sunday next week. Okay? And then we're going to talk about it. Is there anything else on that? Hand this out. I'll read this really quick. I'm just going to read this last part because you guys can read. I'm not going to. Maintaining a time log is pretty simple, but it requires discipline. You need to make entries every day. If you let it slide, you're going to find it impossible to account accurately for your time by working from memory. We usually find that remembered time tends to be more virtuous than reality. So when you go back next Sunday at 9 a.m., you think, "Oh crap! I didn't do my time chart." You're going to go back and you try to fill it out from memory. It's not going to look exactly correct. It's not going to be correct. All right, it's going to be a little more virtuous than if you just actually did. Okay, so what I did whenever I went through this process was every evening before I went to bed, I just jotted down what I did for the day. And then when we talk about it next week, we'll put the quadrants to it, and we'll see where you're spending your time. All right, and also we'll talk about some priorities in our lives. Here's what I found was this. I wanted 5 categories of my life to matter. So, for example, my wife, my family, my ministry, my health, and something else. I don't know what else it was. My education, maybe. But when I went through and charted a 2-week section, and we actually charted 2 full weeks, the time I spent in those priority areas were extremely low. And so, my intentions were good. I wanted to do these things better, but my time, my actions said otherwise. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You know, career was number 5 on my list, but I was spending the overwhelming majority of time at work and not very much time at home. And the time I was spending at home wasn't good time. That's TV time. Monitor your TV time. Write it down. And don't feel like you have to change this week to make it, well, I want to reflect a more virtuous, week. Don't do that. Be realistic, all right? Don't throw your TV out this week and say, well, I'm not going to fall into that trap. Be as realistic with yourself as possible. This will give you an insight into where your time is being spent.